Hello there. Welcome into a Tuesday edition of the show. I am so glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the new Extra Sports 1300 app sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health, and well-being for all. A veritable cornucopia of sports topics await you over the course of the next 3 hours, and I would love to get your opinions on all of them. The text and the phone line are the same number for your convenience, 719-247-1313. Let's start this with really could go either way. Last night was not good, just in general. If we have to sacrifice the success of both the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche at the altar of the Denver Broncos being good, would you take? Is that the trade-off that we're willing to make? To see champions reduced to rubble? So the Broncos can sneak in for the 7th spot. You know that thing where you can't have, no city can have multiple, except I guess Boston. Like more than one or two teams good at the same time. Like it's just impossible for every team in the city to be great. Except again, Boston. I'll tell you what, I'm not trading the Nuggets and Avalanche championship window for a Broncos wild card window. So I don't know who needs to hear this. Sports gods, put it back the way it was. I get it. Broncos are the biggest thing in the sport, or in the state, but two teams in championship windows. I don't want to see them reduced to this, just so the Broncos can get blown out by the Buffalo Bills in round one. But let's start with the Denver Nuggets, shall we? And I, first and foremost, want to blame the jerseys. Now, I have ridden along with a lot of different Nuggets uniforms. I've been on board. I like the Sonoma red or whatever that color was when they did that Flatiron red, whatever they called it. I was okay with that. I was good with that. I defended that look. Those jerseys that the Denver Nuggets wore last night were absolutely awful. Awful. And the reason why is not the rainbow. I love whenever they bust out the rainbow unis. The best look of any Colorado sports team at any point in the history of Colorado sports. Nuggets rainbow skyline. Now, I'll fight anybody that disagrees with me. But I despise the 5280. I hate it. I hate it. At least with like an area code, you're representing where you're from. 5280, it's like an inside joke. Right? Even people don't understand what 5280 is outside. I mean, if you, and I get it, these uniforms, team nicknames, all that kind of stuff, it's for the fan base. The 5280 thing is lame. And the Broncos have it right across their forehead, which is a good place for it, I suppose. And then the Nuggets have it on their jerseys. I hate it. It's like when Tim Connolly put 300 on the court, and everyone was like, what does that mean? Like 300 days of sunshine. Like, we got to stop. We got to stop with this stuff. I'm okay with the, warning you're at 5,280 feet and apoxia or whatever it's called, like that little thing that the Nuggets do before the game. I'm fine with that. That's cute. That's, a little fun thing. Like, fans don't see that. They don't broadcast that on television. Keep the inside jokes to the arena. Don't broadcast it for everybody. 5,280 feet. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. And it looks dumb. They need to get rid of those jerseys immediately. And in that way, I'm kind of glad that they got absolutely beat down last night, because then maybe they'll put away that look. It's a terrible look. See the Avalanche putting 5280 anywhere? Like, I'm legitimately asking. I haven't seen it. That's a serious franchise. They're not slapping 5280 on everything. I don't think even the Rockies put 5280 on anything. It's dumb. It needs to be retired immediately. It was a terrible looking uniform last night. And a performance that went well. I will say this. The Nuggets matched their uniforms quite well last night. Terrible uniforms, terrible performance. And you know the thing about it? Michael Malone knew. I think he knew. Pre-game press conference. He's going on about Tom Thibodeau, and he coached. He's been in New York and stuff, and I think he's got a decent relationship with Tibbs. He's gushing about how good Tibbs is and how everyone says he can't coach offense and they're the highest scoring team in the league and all this kind of stuff. He's going on and on, up and down the roster. Karl-Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson, OG Anunoby, who, by the way, I think had 40 last night. But he got to a quote at the end. We were embarrassed last year from the get-go. That was an ass kicking from Jump Street, and I will have to be ready to go. And I challenged our players this morning. We are 5-3 at home. We had a playoff series where we lost 3 games to Minnesota. We have to get back to defending our home at a much higher level than we have, and hopefully we could do that tonight. That was before the game. Apparently nobody listened. And when I say nobody, I mean nobody except for Russell Westbrook. Even Nikola Jokic was bad last night. But that is a coach speaking that he knew something. But he tried. He tried his best to make them understand. And the message clearly did not sink in. And it was an absolutely abysmal performance. Just a couple of nights, by the way, after they bum rushed the Lakers on the second night of a back-to-back. You get time in between, you're at home. And the Knicks are a good team. But what was it, 142 to 111? 145, 118. Want to make sure I got the score right. It's terrible. So, as friendly members of the media try to do, they give the coach an out. You just want to flush it. The fans want to hear you say, Michael Malone, that you just flush it and move on. It's not who we are. It's not who we've been. Just a bad night, and we're moving on. Michael Malone not having any of it.
Is this the game that you feel like you can kind of flush and doesn't
No,
mean too much?
No, we're not flushing. You don't flush when you get embarrassed. You don't flush when you gave up 145 points. You don't flush when you didn't play hard, didn't play with effort, didn't play with physicality. I'm not flushing anything.
And you don't flush it when it's been who you are recently. One night before the Nuggets beat the Lakers, they were down 24 in the first half to the Dallas Mavericks. You go back even further. Memphis. They got beat soundly by the Memphis Grizzlies. The game before that, they lost to a Pelicans team that I can't even name 3 guys on the roster because anybody that you equate with the Pelicans is hurt. This has been the Nuggets for 2 or 3 weeks. That's why you don't flush it. It'd be different if this was, say, the team that I'm going to talk about in the next segment. Given their recent form. The Nuggets have been doing this like every other game for the past 2 weeks. And Michael Malone warned them. And the message didn't sink in. And Jamal Murray, after the game, found a new excuse to throw out there.
It's a long season. Guys have lives outside of basketball. We just beat LA in LA. Got some guys that are live in LA, so stayed in LA. And like I said, I don't think the focus was there from everybody. And that's what happens when you don't have a focus. Like I said, it's not on coach. It's not on what plays are running. It's not on anybody else but the guys that are out there on the court.
Oh, don't worry. Nobody's blaming Michael Malone. Don't worry. You don't have to worry about that. Nobody was watching that game last night and saying, man, they need to diagram better plays. But that's a new one. We stayed in LA overnight. 2 nights ago, by the way. Did you get back on Monday? You got back on Sunday. Yeah, you left. You stayed the night Saturday. You left on Sunday, arrived back in Denver from LA. Not a long trip, mind you. Tomorrow I head to Puerto Rico. That's a 6-hour flight. Last time I checked, LA to Denver on a chartered flight for an NBA team is a little bit more comfortable than what I'm about to experience tomorrow. And hey, I'm not complaining. I'm looking forward to the trip. You stayed overnight in LA and that affected you on Monday? And I hate that the guys have lives outside basketball. That's okay. But if your life outside of your job is affecting your job, that's a problem. Perhaps the person who was seen very recently before a Nuggets game taking in a UFC fight card might not quite get. It's fine. You're adults. Stay overnight in LA. Go out, party. Sunday, rest, recover. Then you got all day Monday. It's not like you were just a little lethargic and the New York Knicks came in and beat you. 145 to 118. They embarrassed you on your home floor. Guys have lives outside. That's okay. We all have lives outside of our job. Once in a great while, it does affect us. Right? But again, this has been going on with the Nuggets for the last 2 weeks. This is not a one-off. This is not, oh, they pushed a little bit too hard and affected them. All right, lesson learned, moving on. Happened against Dallas. Happened against Memphis. And Jamal Murray pointed out that everybody stayed. It wasn't just the guys. If you're trying to point fingers at like a Peyton Watson, who would seem to fit that bill of a guy who lives in LA. I mean, he's from LA, went to school at UCLA. Everybody stayed over. But I don't know. I don't think he's calling out the team, but I don't think it's as good of an excuse as he thinks it is. And the one guy, because of course, one guy that you look at the end of the game and you're like, wow, he had a pretty good game, Russell Westbrook. Why? Because the dude just tries hard. Right? Just yesterday, I'm talking about, you can't bench Jamal Murray. He's got to figure it out because the Nuggets don't have a chance to win a title unless Jamal Murray is right. And I don't think that banishing him to the bench with the group that they have with the second unit right now is going to get him going, get him some good looks. And then once again, he is thoroughly outplayed by Russell Westbrook. But here's the thing. Russell Westbrook was brought in partially because of Jamal Murray, not to replace him, but to show him, hey, this is what it looks like. This is a guy, Russell Westbrook has gigantic holes in his game. Jamal Murray has a chance to be a better player than Russell Westbrook. I think he's more talented. But what Russell Westbrook has done throughout his career, been available and played hard. Right? Nikola Jokic, both of these guys, the triple doubles. What can you say about both of them? Well, not Jokic last night, but more often than not, they're available and they work hard. And they're two of the top 4 guys in the history of the National Basketball Association in triple doubles. Part of bringing in Russell Westbrook, I thought, was to motivate Jamal Murray, to give him an example of what he needs to be. Clearly, he doesn't see that. Maybe because, he has a life outside of basketball. I don't know. Maybe a message needs to be saying this is so not what I expected the beginning of this season to be. And I don't want to hear about Aaron Gordon being hurt. Okay, you have the best player in the world. You have a player that played at an elite all-star caliber level just 2 years ago and won a title. The Nuggets don't win a title without Jamal Murray. The Nuggets are about 40 games over 500 when Jamal Murray scores 25 or more points. The last 3 seasons. 40 games over 500. There's a correlation, but you don't get that Jamal Murray nearly enough. But how about 22? There are 30 guys right now in the NBA that average 22 points a game. Tell me Jamal Murray can't average 22 points a game playing with the best passer in the National Basketball Association? He can't average 22? It's tough. I'm saying they shouldn't bench him, and I don't know. I don't know. You punish Jamal Murray because look, you can punish everybody. Nikola Jokic was bad. Michael Porter was bad. Peyton Watson was bad. Christian Brown was bad. I know it's been going on with Jamal Murray a little bit more, but I feel like you got to do something with Russell Westbrook. Maybe do it in a more positive way. Like, hey, Russell Westbrook is bringing the requisite effort I'm going to reward him. And maybe that's at the expense of Jamal Murray. Maybe it's just how you look at it. It's not a Jamal Murray benching or demotion. It's a Russell Westbrook promotion to hold him up as the example of what this team should play like on a nightly basis. This team won a title a year and a half ago, and you would think watching this team that it was a decade ago. They look nothing like the team that won a title 2 seasons ago. Maybe it's their lives outside of basketball that are influencing their play on the court. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on that. Not much better, actually not any better from the Colorado Avalanche. They got their butts kicked last night, but there is a difference between the Avalanche and the Nuggets last night, and I'll get to that next on Extra Sports 1300. We got a good one out in Maui. The Colorado Buffaloes are 2 points down to UConn. 65-63 Buffs at the line for a pair of free throws. Make it 65-64. I'll keep an eye on it for you. But CU playing in the Maui Invitational trails number 2 UConn, a team that, as you might recall, has had a fair amount of success recently in college basketball. And now they're tied at 65, 4:40 to go. I'll keep an eye on it for you. So, Avs and the Nuggets both, perhaps with the case of the Mondays, they both were absolutely dreadful last night. Avs get a snowman built on them. Tampa Bay scores 8 in their last game of the road trip. Jared Bednar, though, and just for reference, if you're just tuning in, here's Michael Malone. They were both essentially asked the flushing of the game question. Here's how Michael Malone responded last night.
Is this the game that you feel like you can kind of flush and doesn't
Oh,
do too much? Or is
no, we're not flushing.
Okay. Here's Jared Bednar after an equally awful performance from his hockey team.
Our brains were not turned on, so then it turns into just chasing the game all over the place, and execution got bad, and yeah, just one of those nights. So it's probably one of those, based on the road trip and where we're at in it and the way we played, it's probably one of those ones where you just swipe it under the carpet and talk about it briefly and move on.
Okay, so sweep it under the carpet. They're going to sweep that one under the carpet, and Michael Malone's not flushing anything. Why the difference? Now, obviously, tone, Jared Bednar, not as demonstrative as Michael Malone is, right? But why, when you could look at both of these games last night and say they were both equally terrible, why is Jared Bednar going to sweep it under the carpet and Michael Malone is dropping F-bombs and getting very upset with beat writers? Because it's not about last night for either one of these teams. Not really. Michael Malone's frustration is about the last 2 weeks, and I would dare say the entire season. Jared Bednar's team had an amazing road trip. They have won, 7 of 9? They have dug themselves out of that early season hole they found themselves in because of how bad Alexander Georgiev was. They've climbed out of it. They're playing well. It's the last game of a 4-game road trip, clear across the country. It's not to excuse it. It's bad. But how much time you dwell on it is based on the context of what's around it. The Avs have been playing well. Avs have been winning games. Nuggets have not been playing well. Nuggets have not been winning games. So Michael Malone's not that upset about that particular game. He's upset about the way his team has played for weeks now. Jared Bednar, meanwhile, very satisfied with the way that his team has been playing lately. So he says, you know what? Not going to harp too much on this one. And I think it's the right call. Right? Given the way the Avs have played recently, they're just coming off of a huge win against the defending Stanley Cup champions. Yeah, because of the whole Stanley Cup rematch thing. You don't love when the Avs lose to Tampa, especially that badly. But which one would you rather the Avs have gotten? Saturday against Florida or last night against Tampa? So I think Jared Bednar's right. I think both coaches are right, but It's a different tone from Jared Bednar than Michael Malone because of what this team has been up until Monday night. Now, that's not to say that there isn't an issue right now with the Colorado Avalanche. And yes, I'm talking about goaltending. Justus Onanen is in there. I was on the air when the game started. I didn't hate to use Jared Bednar's phrase. I didn't hate the first goal that Onanen gave up. Maybe he needs to be a little bit stronger in the crease and force his way forward a little bit to try and cut off that shot. But he was screened by two guys. Okay, there's that. The second goal he gave up to Gensel, where Gensel's just kind of slowly skating to his left and Justus Onanen is just kind of standing there. And then Gensel, only one place Gensel could have shot that 5-hole. Still, he beats Justus Onanen. One more goal by Nikita Kucherov. They yank him. Georgiev comes in. Not much. The result's not much better. And then they put back in Justus Onanen, and he proceeds. And I'll be darned. Another 5-hole goal. And the last one he gave up went off of his glove. It hit him in the mitt and ended up in the back of the net. It was not a great performance from Alexander Georgiev. It wasn't a great performance from the guys playing in front of goal, but Justus Onanen was horrifically bad. Here's Jared Bednar discussing why the back and forth with his goalies in that game.
Big week coming up. I got to plan ahead a little bit on it too. Didn't love the start from Juice, so go to Gorgie if we could. Is we had a little jump and got a couple chances in the first period where I thought that game was still in reach, and then it wasn't. So then we went back to Juice to give Gorgie some rest.
And the stretch he's talking about coming up, they have Vegas followed by Dallas. Who's that third team that they have? Vegas, Dallas, Edmonton. And then they go back out to the eastern part of the United States for one of their longest road trips of the year, 5 games. Not the best teams in the NHL except for Carolina. They play Buffalo, but it's a 5-game road trip clear across the country again. This is a rough stretch. And the Avs just can't continue to live this way. Because now we've settled into a pattern here. You notice this? Once they benched Georgiev, you get about 3 good games of Onanen. Then he slips. In comes Georgiev. He plays well for about 3 games. And then he doesn't. And then back comes in Onanen. And now Onanen, I think, has given up 3 or more goals in like his last 5 games. He was bad against Washington. I thought he was better against Philly. But then, again, looking at the big picture, 2 of Onanen's last 3 starts have been quite awful. The Avalanche right now have the 3rd worst goals allowed average in the league. They have a -8 goal differential, which is amazing. It really is amazing if you think about it. Because right now, the Avs have the highest scoring trio in the league. Nathan McKinnon is leading the points race. Makar's been great. Rantanen, he had a mini slump, but he's come out of it. It's both amazing that given those 3 guys that they still have a -8 goal differential, but it's also amazing that the Avs are not at the bottom of their division with the fact that they have the 3rd worst goals allowed average in the league. And it's only by the grace of McKinnon, Rantanen, and Makar that they're not at the bottom of their division. Here are the other teams. This is the company the Avs are keeping right now. 5 teams that are either in last place in their division or second to last place in their division. A Blues team that just fired their head coach and hired Jim Montgomery. And the Panthers. That's the group that they keep right now, the company they keep. Penguins, Canadians, Ottawa, like the absolute most dreadful franchises in the NHL right now. The Avs have as bad, if not worse, of level of goaltending that those teams do. This is not a hot take by any stretch of the imagination. This can't be the case for the Colorado Avalanche if they're going to go deep in the playoffs. That is the opposite of a hot take. That is the most obvious statement in the history of sports talk radio. They cannot be third from the bottom in goals allowed average. And they can't do this thing where they get a game or two of Onanen, then a game or two of Georgiev, then they got to go back to the other one. They can't live like this. And they can't keep asking McKinnon, Makar, and Rantanen to each score 2 goals in a game just so they can eke out a win. But here's the issue. Because I know you agree with me on the goaltending situation. Where are the goalies? Where are they going to get one? Right? Where are they going to get one? Now, it'll be a little bit better if you're back on the Georgiev train and you say, well, you replace Onanen with a backup. Okay, a backup goalie is a bit easier to find. But there aren't a lot of teams that are putting their high-level goalie on the market. If these teams get a good goalie, they keep them. And we're waiting for this goalie salary bubble to burst, and it just never is. Ullmark gets paid, and Swayman gets paid. Shesterkin's going to break the bank. They're not letting these guys go. So where's the... It's kind of like the Jamal Murray thing with the Denver Nuggets. Right? Like, what are you... When we were discussing whether the Nuggets should sign Jamal Murray to this extension, commit to him long term, who are you going to get that could possibly give you what, at his best, Jamal Murray gives you? It's the same thing with the Avs. Who is available for the Avs to make a deal for that is going to give you more competent goaltending than what you have right now? As sad as a fact as that is, who's going to offer it? If Georgiev right now is the number one goalie, and certainly recently he is, who can you get that's better than him? Could you get someone that's better than what Onanen was last night? Maybe, but he's going to be your backup. You're still going to have to put all your hope and faith in Alexander Georgiev, which I still think is a little bit of a shaky proposition. That's the problem that the Avs are in right now. They tried it. They brought in Kakinen and it worked for like 2 seconds to motivate these guys, and then they shipped him out. And now all that's gone. And I probably shouldn't rope in Georgiev into the discussion about last night, because I hate to put it on a goalie that gets thrust into duty. And clearly Georgiev wasn't even, the idea was to give him the entire night off. But it got so bad that Jared Bednar he had to do it. So Georgiev's a bigger picture thing. I'm not really talking about Georgiev last night, although he wasn't great. And Avs need to still make up some ground here. They're going into a brutal stretch between travel and quality of teams. They're 8 points back of the division to Winnipeg. They're 6 back of Minnesota for second. Minnesota has a game in hand. They're 2 back of Dallas for the third spot in the Central, to say nothing of the Pacific. And the Stars have 2 games in hand. Right now, it's shaping up for there to be 2 spots available for the Avs, Oilers, Canucks, Kraken, and Blues. Avs, Edmonton, Vancouver, at least, were all supposed to be very good this year. And one of those teams is trending in a direction where they're going to miss the playoffs entirely. Avs have got to make up points. So we get into the month of December. They got to set themselves up to really chase the division in the second half and not chase a mere playoff spot. But somehow I say that, and somehow they won 3 of 4 on the road trip. They beat the defending Stanley Cup champions. They've won 7 of 9 before last night. Doesn't mean there's not a problem. It's just they're compensating for it right now. I don't know how much longer they can compensate. 719-24-7-1313. Hey, here's some good news. Buffs pulled it out. 73-72. The Colorado Buffaloes just upset the 2-time defending national champions. Roll Tide. 73-72. Good job by CU. Speaking of which, Deion Sanders very upset about something today. I'll let you know what it is next. Again, if you're just joining us, the Colorado Buffaloes men's hoops team took down second-ranked and two-time defending national champions UConn out in Maui, 73-72 was the final score. That's a big win. In a year, by the way, that a lot of people looked at CU and went, look at all they lost. Well, just took down the double champs. Good win for Tad Boyle. Speaking of Colorado, the list of trophy finalists, not the trophy that we're all eagerly awaiting, the Heisman Trophy, but all the, Walter Camp, Maxwell, all these, Biletnikoff, all these other ones. And I can't sit here, like some people will do this. I can't sit here and act like I care a lot about the Biletnikoff and the Maxwell and the Jim Thorpe. For me, it's the Heisman, right? But you know who does care? Deion Sanders. All the trophies that Shedeur and Travis Hunter are up for, there is one that Travis Hunter is not, and Coach Prime today not happy about it.
How is Travis Hunter snubbed by the Jim Thorpe Award? You can have my award. You can have it back. Matter of fact, I'm going to give him mine. I ain't using it. It's just sit up there collecting dust. So Travis could have my Thorpe Award, because if this ain't the most idiotic thing in college football, that he's not a finalist for the Jim Thorpe Award, and he is, I would say arguably, but I don't think it's really an argument about this young man being the best defensive back in college football.
I like how he punctuated dust. Like, take that, Jim Thorpe Award. It's collecting dust. And I'm not even dusting it, not even Swiffering it. They have handheld Swiffers, right? It's not just on the floor. Anyway, look, if Travis Hunter wins the Heisman, then everything is right with the world. Right? We won't look back on Travis Hunter's career and be like, the thing that Travis Hunter's career was missing? The Jim Thorpe Award. Yeah, but he got Heisman. Yeah, but he didn't get the Jim Thorpe Award. But it is silly, isn't it? I've long believed that Travis Hunter is a better defensive back than he is a wide receiver, and that's not knocking his ability as a wide receiver. I just think if you told me he's got to pick one or what, I think he's a better defensive back. And the idea that he's not one of the best three in America is pretty ridiculous. And this is a difficult position. The secondary is difficult. And I go back about a week ago when Deion Sanders laughed off the question about how Travis Hunter doesn't have more tackles. Well, apparently that was a Jim Thorpe Award voter that asked that question. Where are all the Travis Hunter tackles? They don't throw his way. That is the ultimate sign of you're a great defensive back. We don't throw it your way. Teams didn't throw at Champ Bailey. Teams don't throw at Pat Surtain right now. Unless he's on Brock Bowers, then the Raiders really have no choice. But they don't throw at Travis Hunter. You know why? Did you see that throw and near pick that Travis Hunter had? That one, it was a really low throw from Kansas, and he did the go-go gadget arms thing, diving and nearly picked it off. Like a defensive back with that kind of wingspan and those ball skills that he has, you don't throw his way. And yet, one more interception and he'd be in the top 12 in America. They don't throw it his way, yet if he would have made that interception, we'd be talking about him in the top 12 in America. And it's not like the top guy in America. I think the top guy in America has 7. Okay, so there's a decent lead, but there's a bunch of guys with 4. Travis Hunter has 3. There's a bunch of guys with 5. Like, despite not being thrown at, Travis Hunter has been able to still put up pretty good numbers. His pass breakups are among the nation's leaders. I don't get what the counter argument to Travis Hunter's candidacy for being the best defensive back in America. And the entire crux of his Heisman candidacy, and I know if you're a Buffaloes fan that's active on social media, you have to go to the map for Travis Hunter and do this. It's not, the argument isn't Travis Hunter does both. That's not the argument for him to win the Heisman. The argument for him to win the Heisman is he is arguably the best at both of those things. He doesn't just do both. It's such a, and the people that make it know what they're doing. Oh, it's snap counts. It's not about snap counts, and you know it. It is about the fact that Travis Hunter is arguably the best wide receiver and arguably the best defensive back in America simultaneously, and does both at a high level in each and every game he plays in. So I can't say that I would be as indignant as Deion Sanders is about the whole thing, but I agree with him. It's kind of ridiculous. I don't know who dropped the ball at the Jim Thorpe Award headquarters, but somebody did. And here's a great test. Can you name one defensive back in America that would be in consideration for this award? Not just name the other corner on CU or your favorite team. Like, outside of Travis Hunter, who's the best corner in America? Who's the best 2? And this committee came up with 3 names that are better than Travis Hunter. Yeah, Deion Sanders is right. It's pretty idiotic. But as long as he wins the Heisman, that's the one that matters. And no, I don't think that being snubbed for the Jim Thorpe Award ultimately costs him his Heisman. I think the burden of proof now is on Ashton Genty. He's got to do something, because right now, where it's heading, Travis Hunter's going to win the Heisman. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, a clear separation between the best in the AFC and the pretty good in the AFC, and where the Broncos lie in all of that next here on Extra Sports 1300. Welcome in. Drive Time Sports on a Tuesday. Thanksgiving coming up on Thursday. Just in case you wondered why certain grocery items were in short supply. Because Thanksgiving's on Thursday. Reminder, you could stream the show live right now on our social media platforms at XTRA Sports 1300, Twitter or X, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. The handle is all the same. A rare, really good, interesting matchup on Monday Night Football this late in the season last night. Didn't quite live up to the hype. Chargers jumped out to the early lead, and then Baltimore took complete control of that game. But I can't say that I'm totally surprised by the result last night. What you saw was there's a clear separation in the AFC. Right? Baltimore, Buffalo, Kansas City, that is the ruling class. That is right now, I would think it would be very difficult to make an argument for anyone in the AFC outside of that group to go to the Super Bowl. And yes, I mean, anyone. Baltimore, Kansas City, Buffalo. They're the top tier. The Chargers come in the tier below. And I think the Steelers are on that tier as well. Very good, but not Chiefs, Bills, Ravens good. And I know Steeler fans, we beat Baltimore. Yeah, I hope for that matchup. And you know what? I may take you. I may take the Steelers if they match up against the Ravens. It's one of those matchups. For some reason, the Steelers just have Lamar Jackson's number. And good on them, because they may run into him at some point. But if you objectively look at these teams through the course of the season, I think you can tell from a talent standpoint that the Pittsburgh Steelers are not on the Ravens level. But hey, you win your first round game, maybe you meet up against Baltimore. Play that out. But Pittsburgh is not a more talented team than Baltimore. And I don't like the Steelers' chances against Buffalo or against Kansas City in the playoffs. But I'm not disparaging the fact that Mike Tomlin has the Steelers where they are right now with Russell Wilson as their quarterback. Ton of credit. What Jim Harbaugh has done with the Chargers this season, and his MO is he gets it right quickly. And he has. Chargers didn't charger that game away last night. Ravens were just better. Ravens blew past them midway through the second quarter and never looked back. There are clear flaws with Pittsburgh and LA. LA, it's the playmakers. And we knew they were sacrificing, right? Keenan Allen gone, Mike Williams gone. We knew that Justin Herbert would not be working with the same level of receiving talent. But what Jim Harbaugh made a bet on was that we're going to run the football and we're going to win games that way. We're not going to give games away. And they're not. It was the right bet. If you had to sacrifice one for the other, I think the Chargers chose right. And now their obvious shopping list for this offseason is to get Justin Herbert better receivers. with the Steelers, it's obvious. And it's been the Steelers' biggest thing forever. Yes, you would love a second wide receiver. It's quarterback. The biggest weakness, the biggest liability of the Pittsburgh Steelers is their quarterback. And until they really and truly address that position, I can't take them seriously as a Super Bowl contender. So they're the second tier beneath Kansas City, Buffalo, and Baltimore. And then you have a third tier. And that third tier, Denver Broncos, Houston Texans. Broncos are in that tier. And I just, at this juncture, as impressed as I've been with Bo Nix, I just don't see upward mobility for them this year. Now, in playoff seeding, maybe. And that's the best part if you're a Broncos fan about last night is now the Chargers are extremely vulnerable. But all you're getting there is a different matchup. I mean, you're still a wild card team. But that's what makes the Bo Nix story better. I mean, we could talk about Marvin Mims and we could talk about Devon Vele, and they're great stories, and it looks like the Broncos found something in them. Broncos are going to get better. Not just through the progression of Bo Nix, the improvement, their roster is going to get better. They're going to upgrade this offseason. And they're really going to upgrade once the Russell Wilson money is off the books. And they have their draft picks. But I don't see the Broncos at the same level as the Chargers. I think the Chargers are a step up from where the Broncos are. But the Broncos are still arguably at the top of that third tier in the AFC. The way that CJ Stroud has kind of regressed this year, you could make an argument that the Broncos are as good, if not better, than Houston. But Houston's sitting atop a bad division. And that's why they'll get a little bit sweeter draw in the playoffs. But last night, you saw the difference. Jim Harbaugh's getting the Chargers right. He's got them right enough that I think they'll make the playoffs. And then they're going to get better. With Harbaugh, with Peyton, the future stock on these teams is worth purchasing. Because I think they're going to get better. I don't know if Pittsburgh's going to ever figure out their quarterbacking situation. I feel like there's just an arrogance about the Steelers right now that they're not going to mortgage a bunch of draft capital to move up to get a quarterback. If one happens to be there, then they'll grab them. But, I mean, what they're doing, what they did with Justin Fields and what they're doing now with Russell Wilson, could you see Russell Wilson being the quarterback there next year? I could. What the Chargers and the Broncos have to get right from here on out is not as difficult as what some of these other teams have to figure out. So the fact that Peyton and Harbaugh have their teams where they are now, and they're so early, really makes the future exciting. The present, though, there are levels to this. Chargers aren't on the top level. Broncos have a couple of steps to go before they're on the top level. But they both should make the playoffs. So Broncos this week will actually talk again before I say talk again because I'm traveling this week with the Air Force women's basketball team. Be back on Monday, and we'll be talking about the game against Cleveland. Still, and I like Vance Joseph's comment last week where he said, we haven't earned a trap game yet, or we don't deserve a trap game or something like that. Like, we're not in a place where we have trap games. Right? Every game should be vitally important to us. We shouldn't be overlooking anyone. And it was a good message. I think you have a Browns team that gets more time to prepare, but is coming off the high of beating the Steelers. Perhaps the Browns come down a little bit. The one thing that would, and I fully expect the Broncos to win, but I fully expected them to beat the Raiders, and it took a Gardner Minshew interception to change that game. I don't know if Nick Chubb is as motivated to run against the Denver Broncos as he was against the Steelers, but if there's one thing about this Broncos defense that despite the numbers, I'm still I waver a little bit on is their rush defense. Look at some of the teams that they've played. I mean, their ability to rush the passer, to create turnovers, get sacks, all that kind of stuff. They've done that against everybody on their schedule. The run game, I think they've been helped out a lot with some weaker running teams. And we've seen at times that run defense can get a little leaky. So I guess if I'm looking at a path to a victory for the Browns, if Nick Chubb runs the ball like he did against Pittsburgh, then maybe the Broncos could be in a little bit of trouble here. But their ability to get to the quarterback, and I know everybody loves Jameis Winston, and he's an amazing soundbite, and he's eating snow, and he's America's darling right now. Still Jameis Winston. He's still going to put the ball in harm's way. He's been a little bit better. Still got that in him. That's a hard thing to get out of, right? Brett Favre was that way for his entire career. Brett Favre never got better at forcing the ball into tight windows, getting picked. Brett Favre did that his whole career. It's a tough habit to break, which is why it's so impressive that Bo Nix hasn't shown that for many weeks. But they'll be able to pressure Jameis Winston, pressure him into some ill-advised throws. Just got to worry about Myles Garrett. But look, what better practice for going against Myles Garrett than to go against Max Crosby? And Crosby had his moments on Sunday for sure. But they were able to navigate around it. And I think that the Broncos have enough to navigate around Myles Garrett come Monday night. So Broncos get the result. I think that is more desirable, putting the 6th seed very much within reach. Those two teams play each other in a few weeks. Chargers got a couple of difficult games in the meantime. Broncos don't. It's almost like the NFL knew what it was doing when it flexed the Broncos into that spot. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, I'll be joined by Jessica Mendoza, wide-ranging conversation with the sports anchor from KKTV 11 News. And that is next on Extra Sports 1300.
I'm doing good, Ryan.
I want to ask you off the top, do you remember the worst birthday of your
Oh no, not this again. Oh man, we're gonna talk about CSU right off the top, huh?
Yep, that's how I roll. So that kind of derailed. Well, I mean, both CU and CSU this weekend with potentially season derailing. What is even the situation for CSU? Can they get into the Mountain West title game still?
I'm not letting myself really look at that, to
Okay,
be honest.
fair enough.
I mean, the reality is, and I know this might sound like a major cop-out, but this team is really injured. I mean, obviously Torrey Horton, but then there was that weird moment in Saturday's game against Fresno State where Avery Morrow comes out of the game, and the broadcast says it's not injury related, which was really mind-boggling, confusing, made me scratch my head a little bit. Come to find out, at least from what Jay Norvell said after the game, he does have a knee injury. So that's their leading receiver and their leading running back. Their offensive line is just trash. So at this point, it's like you make it to the Mountain West Championship game, that'd be huge, but you're going to get blown out. You're going to get blown out by Boise State.
Ashton Genty's going to put up 300 yards. He's going to have a Saquon Barkley-like game against the CSU Rams. I don't know. College football has been just in general. In this state, it's a microcosm, right? So we have CU that some people were high on, and then everyone went away, and then they stormed back the UCF game on, and then everyone's buying back in, and then they get pummeled by Kansas, and now they're probably not going to make the Big 12 title game. You get CSU, everybody's firing Jay Norvell, and then he rattles off 5 straight wins, and everybody's buying in, and then they lose to Fresno. Air Force, everybody's bailing on them early in the season. Now they have an outside shot of getting one of those open bowl bids for if there aren't enough bowl. Like, it's just Colorado is a microcosm for what college football has largely been this season.
Yeah, it wasn't so long ago that we were like, wow, football in Colorado hasn't been this good in so long. And that's still true. I mean, both of these seasons are something to be proud of for both CSU and CU, and obviously what the Broncos are doing. But yeah, for CSU and CU to both kind of blow their chances in a way, unless things really go their way this last weekend of the regular season. But for them both to do that on the same Saturday, it was like you watch that CU game and you're like, all right, well, we got CSU later tonight. You're waiting for that game all day. And then for them to come out and let Fresno State hang 28 unanswered on them was just not a good day for me.
Not great. Well, hopefully you've recovered and, had better days since, and hopefully who they play on Saturday or Friday, Utah State, right? They play play Friday. So there you go. A little Black Friday football for you. Let me ask this. I have 2 very hard-hitting journalistic type questions. One, is there a rule somewhere that if the Broncos are good, that the Avalanche and the Nuggets cannot be good? Because I feel like if nobody asks my opinion on that trade-off, but it seems like Nuggets and Avalanche have been up while the Broncos have been down. Now the Broncos are up and these 2 teams are down.
Yeah, I guess you really just can't have it all. I guess that's the truth. Yeah, last night was really bad for both those teams. 2 blowouts for the Avs and the Nuggets. But you got Monday to look forward to for the Broncos.
For sure. And with let me ask my other hard-hitting journalistic question. The 5280 jerseys for the Nuggets. Your thoughts?
I like them.
Mm.
I mean, I think I've told you before, I never get too picky with this stuff. I'm usually pretty hot, like not hot nor cold. I like them. I think they're cool. I like the addition of the color. I think there could be a little bit more to it. It's maybe a little bit underwhelming, but I don't have a problem with it. I think they look pretty good. Just if you're not going to play well in them, then I don't think you should get to wear them again.
And that's what I was saying at the top of the show. Like, I'm glad, because I don't like the jersey, because my whole thing is I despise the 5280 thing. I am so like when the Broncos revealed it on their new uniforms, and as long as the Broncos don't wear white on white, I think that the Broncos new uniforms look good. like blue
Yeah.
pants, white jersey, whatever combination, just not white and white. But then there's that 5280 right across their forehead, and I hate it. And then the Nuggets come out with an even bigger 5280 across their jersey. It's like almost mocking me, like I felt attacked a little bit last night. I'm not a fan of the 5280, but I guess I don't live in Denver, so.
So you're not the first person that I've heard that from. I hear that a lot. What's your problem with it? Is it just because it's not a part of like their original branding and it feels like it came out of nowhere?
No, just like, I don't know. Even though it's like an inside joke. It's an inside joke that I don't even think a lot of people in Colorado like fully get. Like, I compared it to, remember when Tim Connolly put 300, like 5280 300 on the Nuggets court, and it was, and everyone's like, what is this about? He's like, it's 300 days of sunshine, or at least, and it's like, if you want to rep 303, then go for it. That's representing your city, like celebrating and publicizing the fact that people in Denver are oxygen deprived. Like, I just don't, I don't get it. What is the pride that people have in 5280? You know, people up there, what is the pride that they have with the 5280?
Well, maybe it's not so much that they're oxygen deprived, but they're hoping that, you know, the incoming team is going to feel that heat. So maybe that's part of it. But to your point, when you look up pictures of these jerseys, the first Google search is what does 5280 mean on Nuggets jersey. So clearly people aren't catching on, and I don't know, maybe there needs to be a statement put out for the rest of the league.
Maybe they should.
But I like them. I don't mind them.
Yeah, I don't mind the color scheme. I'm always a big fan when they incorporate any ode to the rainbow skylines, which are the best jerseys that any Colorado team has had ever. But not a fan of 5280. Maybe a QR code. So like Karl Anthony Towns, well, he probably knows. But like these other Knick players, like they need to snap the QR code to figure out what 5280. So they knew that they should be like intimidated instead of putting 45 points on them. Anyway, all right. Glad we got that ironed out. Jessica Mendoza joining me, KKTV 11 Sports. Broncos beat the Raiders on Sunday. I think both you and I felt like that was a game that the Broncos were going to win. Does style points matter at all? And if so, did they earn any, in your opinion?
I do. I mean, I do think they matter in my mind for sure. But I feel like this franchise is also at the point where truly a win is a win. And it kind of is funny because it doesn't really go the other way. Like that loss in Kansas City that I hate to bring up to this day, but it didn't feel so much like a loss. It wasn't those ones that like you're hanging your head after that because you know you played to win the game and you should have won that game if it weren't for that one blocked field goal. So going back, I mean, I think it was impressive to see the way that the Broncos responded. And we talked about that yesterday. And I know you talked about it a lot on your show, but just going back to the point of Sean Payton saying that last year's team wouldn't have won this game, I think we can all agree with that. I think that was a team that would have come out in the second half and didn't make those adjustments and didn't execute. And to see this team be able to turn it around, figure some stuff out in the second half, and ultimately win in pretty dominant fashion at the end of the day in the second half is certainly steps in the right direction. So I think it was a win that the Broncos needed to see from themselves and their fans needed to see as well. But yeah, I think it's going to give them a lot of confidence with a little bit of extra time going into Monday Night Football against the Browns on Monday.
And then the result last night certainly helps them potentially put the 6th seed within reach. Do you feel like with the way that this team is trending and given, I mean, we have like a point in history to look at, right? They played the Chargers before and you saw how that game went. The way that the Broncos are trending, do you think that if they sustain it, would you expect them to beat the Chargers.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think when you just think about Bo Nix's first 5 weeks, and I know that was week 6 when they last played the Chargers, but his first 5 weeks compared to his last few weeks are like night and day almost. Like the growth has been insane. And so, of course, it's not all about him, but I think he obviously gives this team a lot of confidence when he's playing well. And I think a lot of the guys around him have stepped up big time too. You see the connection between him and Cortland Sutton. Devon Bailey stepped up huge. Troy Franklin starting to look a lot more comfortable. And I remember talking to him a couple weeks ago saying he wanted to get more involved, and they're starting to get him more involved, and he's making an impact in these games. So yeah, I definitely think that the Broncos have a great chance to beat the Chargers, especially just with the grit that we saw this past week. Like I said, I think that was something I felt like I needed to see, that they could like battle back after, a dominant win coming off of 2 pretty bad losses. And I say bad losses, a horrible loss in Baltimore and then a heartbreaking loss in Kansas City. So yeah, just good to see when you talk about style points, that confidence that you get from knowing your team's got that grit and that belief.
Jessica Mendoza, my guest. I was thinking about this. Or rookie of the year, not rookie of the year. I don't know that I remember an athlete in Colorado having as impressive a debut season as we are seeing with Bo Nix. Because I was thinking about, like, I could get into the rookie of the year minutia, but I was thinking, like, gosh, I don't remember. Like, Jokic, it took a couple of years. Jamal Murray, it took a couple of years. There's been some Avs players, like McCarr's rookie year wasn't even really a rookie year, right? Because he played a little bit the season before. Like, for Bo Nix to be in legitimately his first year and not only be putting up the numbers that he's putting up, but being, and Sean Payne can say all he wants, right? It's not the quarterback. It's not the it kind of is the quarterback. I mean, it kind of is, right? So, can you recall a player in recent history that you have covered or watched that's had this kind of an impact in year one?
No, I really can't. And that's a really good thing to think about. Like, I like that idea, but I can't think of anyone. And I think football is so different too, though, right? Because your quarterback's going to get so much attention. Whereas,
sure,
even if look at it,
look at it this way. If Bo Nix wins rookie of the year, there have only been like a handful of athletes in the last 30 years in Colorado that have won rookie of the year, right? We'll go back to the Rockies. It was Jason Jennings a million years ago, right? He was a starting pitcher, so he pitched once every 5 days. So he had very little impact on the success of the Colorado Rockies. And the Avs were so bad when they had Landeskog and when they had McKinnon that they couldn't elevate them. And then again with the 2 Nuggets guys, it took them a little bit, especially Nikola Jokic. It took him a little while. That I think that more than anything else is what's so remarkable about this. And you and I talk about it on a weekly basis. It just, what he's been able to do here in year one is pretty stunning.
For sure. And whenever I'm preparing for you to come in for our show on Mondays, I'm trying to think, like, how can we, talk about Bo Nix in a different way, or, do we need to talk about him this week? But it's like, he is doing everything that I couldn't have expected that he'd be doing in his first season.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's no way to not, he's got to be the main part of conversation after every week. But I think something that we talked about that kind of goes back to, it matters where you're at and when you're there. Bo Nix has just landed in such a great spot at the right time, right? If he would have landed with the Broncos last season, they probably would have done a little bit better, but it really was like, you say Sean Payton saying it wasn't just the quarterback. No, but yes, but you know what I mean? Like there was a lot of guys, like, and it's hard to say, but I think like getting rid of Justin Simmons and having this new young secondary And there's just so many new pieces that I think it's just, like you said, it's a new culture, and we're seeing that. And I think that's really like building toward their success and, potentially their first playoff appearance in 2015.
Did Sean Payton say yesterday that they're better at safety with Brandon Jones and PJ Locke as opposed to Justin Simmons and Kareem Jackson? Did I see that?
I don't remember hearing that part. I know that he mentioned Brandon Jones by name, but he also mentioned Malcolm Roach. I mean, he was saying like there was 9 different parts, 9 different guys, like an estimate that he was kind of talking about. How he is, that have really come in and helped, turn this thing around and change what we're doing. So I don't think he ever, but I know that Kareem Jackson said something on Twitter, didn't he? Did you see that?
I did not. I saw somebody saying that Sean Payton thought that they're better off at safety. And obviously if Kareem Jackson said something, well, it's obvious to everyone that, is he really talking about Justin Simmons? No, he's talking about the other guy. And that's kind of where I was going with it. Like, you have a hard time saying either of these safeties are actually better than Justin Simmons. But Kareem Jackson, when you talk about a guy that was part of a team that found ways to lose games, his hits against Washington and Vegas would be, kind of exhibit A and B.
Yeah. No, yeah, Kareem Jackson didn't appreciate it on Twitter. I'm looking at his tweet right now. Some of these coaches will say any blank thing, even if it's them putting their foot in their mouth. Shout out to PJ and B Jones, because I love what they're doing this year. Keep going, fellas. So a little support for the guys going in there now, but it sounds like he didn't really appreciate what Sean Payton said yesterday. So
perhaps somebody has a guilty conscience.
Maybe.
All right. So what's fill me in here. I try to, span the globe, so to speak, when it comes to sports in our area. You're much better at it than I am. What's going on with CSU Pueblo?
Yeah, so we were down there today, talked to the team and got to check out their practice a little bit. Pretty cool matchup they got going on. So they got a first round bye in the Division II playoffs. This Saturday they get to host the second round, and they will be taking on Minnesota State Mankato. Mankato.
Yeah.
I lived right next to that for a while. I don't know why I just blanked. But they have played each other 5 times in history. The first time was in the national championship in 2014. That's when CSU won. The last 3 times, Mankato has beat CSU Pueblo and eliminated them from the playoffs. That was in 2017, 2018, and 2019. So the Thunderwolves have some revenge to get, but these Mavericks have been in the playoffs many, many times, and this will be CSU Pueblo's first appearance in a couple years. So the guys are feeling good about it, excited to have it at the Thunder Bowl, and it should be a good time on Saturday. And if they win and Western wins, it'll be another epic matchup between those two in the third round. So looking forward to hopefully some more RMAC action in the Division II playoffs in a few weeks.
And that we could see that at 5:30 and 10 tonight, or what's the plan for the Thunderwolves fans listening?
Yes, so we will talk about them at 5:30 and 10. Or 10 o'clock will probably be just a college football show. We're going to talk about the rankings coming out.
All right.
Air Force winning again. I don't know. I still got to decide if I'm going to talk about Colorado State or not. But maybe we'll talk about how they can still make the Mountain West tournament and just see what that'll look like. So still working on it, but yes, plenty of CSU Public talk today.
Nice. With the Mankato stuff, I remember years ago, I called Bemidji, and I got eviscerated. So people in Minnesota, they do not take kindly to mispronouncing their names. So I've gone through that
some
before.
Of the craziest names out there, though. Like some of them, it's like they don't even look how they sound. Mankato's like easy. I don't know why I just had a brain fart, but I'm glad I got it out on, on your show instead of mine.
There you go. There you go. I'm glad, you work out the kinks and then you're ready to roll for 5:30 and 10. I dig it. Jessica, appreciate the time as always. Have a couple of good shows this evening.
All right. Thanks, Ryan.
You bet. That's Jessica Mendoza, KKTV 11 Sports, joining me here on Drive Time Sports. Yeah, it was many, many years ago, and I was calling, I think it was like a Little League tournament. And I've never lived in Minnesota. And no one gave me a pronunciation guide. And I saw Bemidji, and I said Bemidji. And woo, I heard it. I heard it from the fine folks from the state of Minnesota. And never make that mistake again. Or is it, did I pronounce it Bemidji and it's Bemidji? I don't remember anymore. Minneapolis, St. Paul. Like, those are the cities those are easy for me. 719-247-1313. More Drive Time Sports after this. My thanks again to Jessica Mendoza for joining me. I just saw this on ESPN. The Colorado Buffaloes beat UConn today, 73-72. The game wrapped up about an hour or so ago. Big win for the Colorado Buffaloes. And the ESPN headline is number 2 UConn drops second straight to unranked foe. Kind of takes some of the shine off of the Buffs win, if I'm being honest. Takes a little bit, right? This happened to UConn just the other day. So good win for the Buffs. Use it, Buffs, to propel you forward. Today, Troy Calhoun met with the media in advance of the regular season finale for Air Force taking on San Diego State. And you've probably heard, if you listened to this program yesterday, I talked about it. But Air Force would be in line for a bowl berth if there aren't enough bowl eligible teams. And we go through this every year. And it just so happens that Air Force is, I think CSU was in this boat not that long ago, but Air Force, if there aren't enough bowl eligible teams, would be probably first up to get a bowl bid. So that puts a little bit more consequence, because that's not going to happen if they lose to San Diego State. So Troy Calhoun today was asked, gotta get my Troy Calhoun audio. Where did I put it? Troy Calhoun was asked whether there has been some discussion about the Falcons potentially getting a bowl bid if they win on Saturday.
I've had no thought, which means there's been no discussion. I'm not doing that with our guys. I mean, I think, what we're going to give to our guys is an organized, spirited practice today, and to do everything we can to help them play well this Saturday against a really, really capable opponent in San Diego State. That's the only place we're looking right now.
And I think he's right in doing that. This is still a young team. Okay, we're not out of this year yet. These guys that were young in week 3 are still young. Okay, and you could probably attribute some of their struggles early on in the year. Some, I think it's more inexperience than anything else. But some of their struggles, you're stepping into a spot. You're stepping onto a team expected to be a contributor for a team that has had its best string of success maybe ever. And now you're going to be counted on, and you've played in a fourth quarter in a blowout last year. Like, I'm sure the pressure was there, I think, for a lot of these players coming into the year, given the success that Air Force had. And that quickly goes away when they struggle and after they lose to the service academies. And now, with no pressure, this team has played extremely well. So why would you mess with that? Why would you introduce that into the conversation if you're Troy Calhoun? Oh, the way you guys have been playing the last few weeks, carefree, loose, having fun, playing for pride, working hard, and you're winning games, and now it's like, hey, got to get to a bowl. And I know Troy Calhoun would not say you have to get to a bowl, but just introducing it introduces that pressure. Keep the atmosphere around the team the same. Right? Replicate what you've been doing the last few weeks. Keep doing it. And there was no bowl conversation as recently as 4 days ago. So why introduce it now? I think it would be incredibly counterproductive. And it's not to say that the players don't know, but you're going to make that a core part of your coaching throughout the week. Hey guys, we can make a bowl game maybe. And that's the other part of this too. Like, they would be in line, but I don't know. There are a few teams that have 5 wins, could be 6 wins. Why bring up something that's not even, like, if they're on the verge of actual bowl eligibility, meeting that threshold, that's one thing. They still wouldn't be, by the letter of the law, bowl eligible. So why introduce that into the mix? And then let's say they're suddenly, given the chaos of college football, there are suddenly enough 6-win teams to take up all the bowls. And now it's just another disappointment you're layering on. And this has the chance to be a very positive building block towards next year, the way they're finishing the year. So I agree with Troy Calhoun there. Like, there's just no benefit. Clearly, this team has not lacked motivation. I mean, if this team lacked motivation and needed a push, then they would be 1 in whatever right now. This team's motivated. This team's coming out and improving and playing hard and winning football games. They're plenty motivated. Whatever it is that's motivating them, whether it's pride, whether it's, personal accomplishment, whether it's just what you do. Hey, if I'm signed up to play college football, I'm going to be motivated every single week to live up to that commitment. Whatever it is, it's working. This team's motivated. When on the outside, they would have every reason not to be motivated. I don't think this team needs a kick in the pants. I don't think this team needs to be amped up for Saturday. I think enough of them know. But clearly this team has, what's that phrase, found their why. This team, these players have found their why. Because the Mount West was gone a long time ago. They lost to both service academies, lost to CSU, and yet they still go out every week in battle. If it ain't broke. And recently it's not broke. So if they win against San Diego State on Saturday, which they very well could, I would almost say should. We'll see if they get an invitation. I don't care if it's the Pop-Tart Bowl. Well, Pop-Tart Bowl would be kind of awesome, if we're being fair. But the JohnDeereMowers.com app bowl. It's a bowl. It's postseason. You get to play football again. You got something. You're able to achieve something, and you get this. I don't care what bowl they play in. That would be a big deal, given where this team was just a few weeks ago. That's the thing, too, right? You're playing Service Academy football. They're not playing to be ranked in the college football playoff. How many other things do they have that they can chase? Well, this is one of them, bowl eligibility. Or being the next team up if there aren't enough 6-win teams. So that's Saturday night. You can hear the game on 740 KVOR if you are so inclined. It's a busy weekend of Air Force sports. Jay Ritchie and Dave Toller will be in Rhode Island for Air Force hockey against Brown. 2 games of that series. I'll be in Puerto Rico for Air Force women's basketball against Milwaukee on Thursday and Winthrop on Saturday. Jim Arthur will be in San Diego with Jesse Kurtz for football. We got we're bringing it, calling to the bullpen and bringing in, I believe it'll be Aaron Brunk from Learfield. That's going to be calling men's basketball. They're going to Ohio. And we got them all between this station and 740 KVOR. We got them all. Women's basketball, men's basketball, hockey, football, all this Thanksgiving week and weekend. Coming up next, we'll hit the 3 stories that are driving the show here on Extra Sports 1300. Hello there. Welcome in Drive Time Sports on a Tuesday. Ryan Kaufman with you. Appreciate you listening, whether it's on your radio, online, or through the new Extra Sports 1300 app, sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health and well-being for all. 719-247-1313 is the number if you'd like to weigh in on this Tuesday show. Coming up at the top of the hour, the Frank Serratori Show from the road, as Air Force will go from the greater Boston area to Rhode Island. Looking for a bounce back this weekend against Brown. So Jay Ritchie, Frank Serratori, and special guests along the way. That's coming up at 6. Right now, here are the 3 stories that are driving the show. All right. Just fair warning. Yesterday was overwhelmingly positive. It's, Today, it's going to be a little bit of a downer with the three stories that are driving the show, but hey, I don't control them. Your favorite teams do. Here's story number one.
Porter has it left side over to Jokic. Back behind him, Murray. Murray dumps it off to Porter, loses the basketball, turnover. Leak out Anunoby. Dunk, two hands. Denver's down by 21 with 50 seconds left to go in the first half.
Altitude Sports Radio Network with the call. That was a pretty good matchup last night. Like, I was looking forward to seeing the Nuggets take on the Knicks, and what it turned into was a 145-118 beatdown of the Denver Nuggets. Michael Malone afterwards frustrated.
Is this the game that you feel like you can kind of flush and doesn't
No,
mean too much? Or is
no, we're not flushing.
No flushing. When it comes to bad basketball performances, you have that option. Every other walk of life, that is not an option. You flush. Anyway, the reason why Michael Malone is so upset, not necessarily because of last night, although it was quite embarrassing. But this is who the Nuggets have been for most of this season. They have not played well. They have gotten blown out. They have lacked passion and effort for a team that's, you wouldn't know that this team was hungry to get back to where they were a couple years ago. If you did not know the Nuggets won a title and are trying to get back there and understanding that that is supposedly motivation for teams, you wouldn't know it. It's not about just that loss last night. It's about that, and it's about the first half against Dallas, and it's the game against Memphis, and it's the fact they lost to the New Orleans Pelicans, a team they had no business losing against. That's just in the last couple of weeks. This team barely looks to be, a contender, let alone a champion. And Michael Malone does this a few times a year. He pulls the ripcord and he's like, I'm going to eviscerate my team. This is one of those times. We'll see if they get the message. Even Jokic last night was bad. And I hardly ever say that. He and Russell Westbrook are the constant. They're the two that you go into every Nuggets game this season saying, well, at least they'll play hard. Can't say that about anyone else on the roster. But even last night, you didn't have that. You had Russell Westbrook. So I don't know. Michael Malone, maybe he needs to prop up Russell Westbrook, give him more minutes. Like, hold him up as an example. And I thought he was supposed to be an example for Jamal Murray. But Jamal Murray is, making excuses about the team having a life outside of basketball. Like, that's an excuse for being terrible at your job? I have a life outside of it? I thought Russell Westbrook was supposed to be motivation for Jamal Murray. Clearly, he is not getting the memo. So maybe, I don't know. Do you bench Jamal Murray? I don't think that's the way to get him going. I really don't. But as an example to everyone else on the team, you got to do something with Russell Westbrook to say, this is the way this guy plays. You all need to play this way. And I'm going to reward him by giving him more minutes or starting him. I don't know. I think it's just going to be a press conference ripping and then see how they respond. And then if they don't respond, then perhaps we need to have a conversation about the roles that certain players have on this team. Wasn't much better for the Avs. Here's story number 2.
Here come the Avalanche. Taves holding, shooting, and he missed the net. Near side boards Kucherov up the wall. And now Hagel for Gensel. He scores through the legs of Monanen and in.
Altitude Sports Radio Network on the call again. It's apples and oranges. But if I could pick the hockey equivalent of the Nuggets getting beat 145 to 118, it would be the Avalanche last night, giving up 8 goals to Tampa and looking awful. It probably same. I would say the Nuggets and the Avalanche had an equally putrid night at the office. The difference, though, is that the Avalanche had won 7 of 9 going into that game. They have been in better form. That was the last game of a 4-game road trip. And that's why afterwards, Jared Bednar was a little bit more amenable than Michael Malone was to move on quickly and to not talk much about that loss. It's not that it's not disappointing, it's just forgivable. To an extent. Here's the other part of it. Alexander Georgiev better be the guy. Because this is 2 of 3 games now where Justus Onanen has been abysmal. And it's just a really difficult situation for Jared Bednar to have to go back and forth between these 2 guys, give this guy 2 games, then this guy 2 games. Any more than that, and you risk a blow-up. The Avalanche are still somehow right in the thick of things in the Central Division with a -8 goal differential and the 3rd worst goaltending situation in the league. Only Montreal and Pittsburgh is worse. That can't happen. They've compensated for it as well as you could expect. It can't be this way. They're not winning a Stanley Cup with this goaltending situation. And your confidence that it will get better really depends on which goaltender you put more stock in. If you're a Georgiev person, then okay, go out and make a move for a veteran backup. But if you're more of an Onanen guy or you don't particularly like either, it's a lot more difficult to shop for a number 1 goaltender or whatever passes as a number 1 goaltender in the NHL these days. Not a lot of them. But 3rd worst goals allowed average, and we're far enough removed from the start to the season that it's not, well, it's messing up the average because Georgiev was so bad to begin the season. No, we're a quarter of the way through. It's enough of a sample size. Avs are 3rd worst in goals allowed. Onanen and Georgiev didn't have much help last night, but forget the goaltender. The Avalanche as a whole, the Avalanche team cannot be the 3rd most scored upon team in the league if they're going to win a Stanley Cup. Pin it on who you want. Those are the facts. It's got to get better. And I don't know what's fixable. Not a lot of teams with quality goaltending like here. There aren't, let me put it this way based on, recent sports conversations. There is no New York Giants that is willing to let the goaltender version of Saquon Barkley just walk and then proceed to make them look like complete buffoons. I don't know where that situation exists. That's what makes the New York Giants so unique. Can't be that. Pin it on who you want. They can't be the third most scored upon team in the league and win a Stanley Cup. And that, last time I checked, was the goal. Here's story number 3.
How is Travis Hunter snubbed by the Jim Thorpe Award? You can have my award. You can have it back. Matter of fact, I'm going to give him mine. I ain't using it. It's just sit up there collecting dust. So Travis could have my Thorpe Award, because if this ain't the most idiotic thing in college football, that he's not a finalist for the Jim Thorpe Award, and he is, I would say arguably, but I don't think it's really an argument about this young man being the best defensive back in college football.
That is Deion Sanders, very upset today. And you know why he's upset. He just told you why he's upset. The next time that I care deeply about the Jim Thorpe Award will be the first time. But Deion's right. Most idiotic thing in college football, I don't know that I can get there, because it is a sport governed by the NCAA, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot. Think about this. The most idiotic thing, Michigan just got sanctioned to death by the NCAA for a cheeseburger, and then they just turned around and spent $50 million on a high school kid. So the college football playoff rankings come out in like 45 minutes. Like, let's slow down a little bit on the most idiotic thing. But this is pretty dumb. This does not make a lot of sense. The whole premise of Travis Hunter is not that he just does both wide receiver and corner. It's that he's elite at both. So the people who are in charge of recognizing the 3 most elite defensive backs in America look at Travis Hunter and go, nah, not for us. That's pretty dumb. And that does not make a lot of sense. Travis Hunter is not just one of the best 3. He is the best corner. He's the best corner in America. The only debate we're having now is if he's just a better player than Ashton Genty. That's what all this has come down to. Ashton Genty's the best running back. Travis Hunter is the best corner. Travis Hunter, probably the best arguably the best wide receiver. Like, the fact that these awards come out and all of them are like, yeah, I get that. Shador's nominated for Davey O'Brien, all that. It's pretty dumb. I agree with Deion Sanders there. But I will say, as long as Travis Hunter wins the Heisman, then nobody's going to care. Deion Sanders won't care. In fact, part of me believes that Deion Sanders is just, it's more, how he's brought up that the only reason Travis Hunter wouldn't win the Heisman is because people hate him, not hate Travis. Nobody hates Travis Hunter. Hates Deion Sanders. He keeps bringing that up. This, to me, feels like his way of, pushing back against the assertion that Travis Hunter is not the Heisman winner. Like criticizing how dumb it is that he's not nominated for the Jim Thorpe Award. Gives him an opportunity to say Travis Hunter is the best defensive back in college. And then he mentioned shortly thereafter about how good of a wide receiver he is, which he was recognized for today, as he is one of the finalists for the Biletnikoff. It's dumb, for sure, but let's be real here. There's only one individual trophy that matters if Travis Hunter wins it. And that's given out in New York. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, you may have missed the Broncos made a roster move yesterday, and somebody that you know will no longer be with the Denver Broncos and why it serves as a valuable lesson when you're evaluating players on bad teams. Lost in the euphoria of a season sweep of the Vegas Raiders, the Denver Broncos made a roster move, cutting Greg Dulcich. You remember Greg Dulcich? He was held up as the next great tight end in the NFL. Most recently, he would be that joker for Sean Payton. And now he's no longer with the team. And it serves as a reminder that you have to be a little bit weary of players that pop off the screen on teams that aren't very good. And I won't deny Greg Dulcich with his speed, and there were certainly some flashes. But like Broncos fans have done this for years. You know, these guys that I feel like Philip Lindsay was one of those, was like the poster child for it. You know, you have to be a little bit careful, because if somebody looks really good amongst a team that doesn't have a lot of good players, it's possible that that guy is not that good. And it's not like the Broncos move heaven and earth to get this guy. But he was supposed to be, you know, the next whatever in Denver. And it's like, it just wasn't. And that's part of the reason why they brought in Sean Payton. It's not just being able to coach up the guys on the team. What we have seen the last two off seasons is Sean Payton watch these guys and go, not you, not you, you, not you, you, not you. This guy has coached playoff teams, Super Bowl teams. Like, he knows. And despite some of the combine-friendly skills that Greg Dulcich had, Sean Payton still looked at him as like, not better than Adam Troutman, not better than Lucas Kroll. That's part of what Sean Payton has done. And you talk about the culture that he's changing. It's partly bringing in players that are better or more dependable. Never bought into the Greg Dulcich stuff. I know people wanted Greg Dulcich to be a thing so badly. But right now, you're just looking for Sean Payton's stamp of approval. And at this point, if he doesn't give his stamp of approval, then you should not lose any sleep over it. Clearly, he's brought in the right players. Clearly, the Broncos aren't missing anybody. Russell Wilson, Justin Simmons, Jerry Jeudy. Do they miss any of these guys? Don't look like it to me. Kareem Jackson. Nope. They don't miss a single one of these guys. And they're not going to miss Greg Dulcich either. So I was looking into it. Sean Payton did say that they're better back there, I think was his words, talking about the secondary and the safety tandem. Because if he said the other day, you know, it's not just the quarterback, it's everybody. So now he's being asked about everybody. Are you better here? Are you better here? And clearly that's not Justin Simmons. I think the idea with Justin Simmons is that he just doesn't fit. He was getting expensive. He doesn't fit the timeline of in the great irony, this team is ready to win now, not ready to win a Super Bowl, but ready to win, get to the playoffs, all that kind of stuff. Justin Simmons fits that timeline, but Sean Payton's still looking longer term here with this team. With Kareem Jackson, he absolutely was one of those guys that contributed to the downfall of the Broncos in football games. And I think Sean Payton wanted to identify those kind of players. And Kareem Jackson was gone long before, Russell Wilson and everything. But he was one of those players that would cost the Denver Broncos. And Sean Payton, Russell Wilson was one of those players. Kareem Jackson was one of those players. I don't remember a game that Jerry Jeudy cost the Denver Broncos, but certainly his demeanor and attitude was probably not very welcome for a team that was trying to instill the right culture. And Kareem Jackson got mad on social media today, because he knows that Justin Simmons is not who he's talking about. And it's not to say that Kareem Jackson's not a talented player, but he would cost the Broncos multiple games with his inability to restrain himself from lighting a guy up. And I watched hits that he got away with and said that should be a penalty. So I don't know where Justin Simmons fits in all of it. I mean, that dude, when you think about a good culture, he's that guy, but clearly, where Sean Payton wants to take this team, Justin Simmons was probably a little too old and too pricey. We do have a Jerry Jeudy revenge game on Monday, though. Played pretty well, made some big catches late in that game against Pittsburgh. But I certainly don't look at the performance of Jerry Jeudy in Cleveland or Justin Simmons in Atlanta and say, man, the Broncos they really ended up missing that guy. Now, there was a time before the tight ends got involved where I was like, what Jerry Jeudy does would help out Bo Nix. But then Sean Payton added the tight ends into the offense. It's like, okay, well, that kind of fixes that. When he wasn't utilizing the tight ends, it was all wide receivers. They didn't have any wide receivers that could run those intermediate routes like Jerry Jeudy can. But certainly now, all these weeks later, missing Jerry Jeudy. And that's the other thing. Devon Vele having a game like he did on Sunday. Can that quiet down the Tim Patrick stuff now? That was another one for the longest time. Oh, Tim Patrick. Look, he's getting catches in Detroit's offense. Yeah. I'd put up 6 or 7 fantasy points in the Detroit Lions offense. You kidding me? Everybody eats on the Detroit Lions offense. Yeah, it's jarring these guys that are getting jettisoned and the Broncos are getting virtually nothing in return. But it's hard to say the Broncos miss any of them. And now perhaps Tim Patrick is the last one now that Devon Vele has had the game that he had. I think Sean Payton likened him to Marcus Colston. That is a significant comparison. Don't know about all that. Now, he said he reminds him of Marcus Colston. Not is as good as. But Sean Payton did that, right? He found Colston. Vele seems like maybe they have something there. Certainly, I wouldn't want the Broncos to go into next season with the current depth chart at wide receiver. They should take a swing at a guy. But Sean Payne's offense needs a lot of guys. So there's a role for Devon Vele. Broncos 5.5-point favorites Monday night against Cleveland. If you want to get in on the action now, found that right on the Circa Sports Colorado app. And either side of that Monday night game that you want to bet, it's a -110 split because that's what they try to do as much as they possibly can. They keep as little money as possible on large market bets like futures and golf tournaments, and they do not limit players based on their winnings. They just want to create the best experience that you're going to get on a sports betting app. And I, for one, believe that they have. So download the Circa Sports Colorado app today. Must be 21 years or older and present in Colorado to bet. If you have a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Frank Serratori show coming up at the top of the hour. Looking for a bounce back weekend against Brown Friday and Saturday. Not a lot of great news today, certainly with the Nuggets and Avalanche getting absolutely embarrassed last night. So I thought, why not end on a bit of a lighter note, a little comedic relief, courtesy of Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers. The headline out of his weekly appearance on the Pat McAfee show: if I'm going to play in 2025, my first choice would be the Jets. Super. Glad to know that. It's nice to know that you are willing to stick with the hostage for as long as it takes. That organization, and he's like, if they want me. He did at least throw that in, at least left a sliver of, hey, it might not be up to me, which is good self-awareness. But like, this organization did how many things and I know this because the Broncos did the same thing. He got two organizations to terraform themselves into the image that would be amenable to Aaron Rodgers, or agreeable, that Aaron Rodgers would be amenable to joining them. Broncos hired Nathaniel Hackett for no other reason than to try and get Aaron Rodgers. How'd that work out? Jets end up getting him with Nathaniel Hackett. Bring in how many of his former teammates? Doesn't work. But yet, his first choice would be New York. I would hope so. I would hope that if at this point it's on the Jets. If the Jets don't want Aaron Rodgers anymore, we just saw this in Denver. Go ahead, say your goodbyes. Okay, because the Broncos, even though they dodged a bit of a bullet with Aaron Rodgers, they took another one with Russell Wilson. And Sean Payton was like, I am not dealing with this. And they moved on, and look at them. Look at the Broncos now. I'm not saying the Jets can be the same because they're an absolute disaster of a franchise that even the Broncos can't even come close to replicating. But I should hope that Aaron Rodgers at least has some desire to give the Jets a little bit of return on their investment. My personal opinion, I think he's done. I think he's done. He's not Brett Favre. I know everybody is like, Minnesota has the chance to do the funniest thing ever and bring him in, and then he's going up against Green Bay twice a year. Like, Brett Favre wanted to go to Minnesota, and the Packers wouldn't allow it, so he went to the Jets and then went to Minnesota. I get that, and that's all well and good. One, the Vikings are in a situation where they don't need Aaron Rodgers. Like, they have a chance to just outright beat the Packers. I don't think they need to bring in Aaron Rodgers to rub salt in the wound of their rival. The fact that they're ahead of them in the division and they're quarterbacked by Sam Darnold, I feel like is sticking it to the Packers enough. But like, Brett Favre just kept wanting to play and wanting to play. And this is where the show comes full circle. Because it started the show with Jamal Murray's comments about how players have lives outside of basketball. If there is an athlete that is the poster child for having interests outside the game that they play, it is definitely Aaron Rodgers. This idea that he's going to hang on and try to squeeze one more good year. I don't know. Part of me says that he craves the attention and the limelight enough that not only would he stick around for another year, but he would be very willing to go somewhere else to be talked about. Where's Aaron Rodgers going? But part of me says that this dude's got a lot going on. And clearly now he's not the biggest problem in New York by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, but he's not what he was. I don't know that there's Brett Favre still had it. I don't know what Aaron Rodgers can bring. My gut says that he's done. But this season has been such a disaster and such a indictment of him as a quarterback. Right? Or more accurately, not him as a quarterback, but just his whole circus that he brings to town. And he met his soulmate in Woody Johnson. I'll tell you that much. I don't pretend to know what Woody Johnson's thinking. To me, the best thing for the Jets is just reboot it. Reboot it. Let Aaron Rodgers go. If he wants to go somewhere else, so be it. But new coach. See if you can't get a quarterback in the draft. I know none of this do I have any confidence that will ultimately work out for the Jets. But that doesn't mean you don't try. Right? It's like the Broncos with drafting quarterbacks. Like for a long time there, it didn't work. But that doesn't mean it's not the right idea. Broncos have had the right idea. They had the right idea when they drafted Drew Lock. They had the right idea when they drafted Paxton Lynch. The problem is, pick the wrong guy. Looks like they picked the right guy this time around. Just because the Jets haven't been good at it, well, they're not good at bringing in a veteran quarterback and winning with him. But the Jets would be his first option if he decided to play next year, which is good. But it also ends the show on a high note because think about it. I know Russell Wilson's doing well for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but if you're a Broncos fan, you're happy. You don't mind. Like early in the season, you were rooting for the destruction of Russell Wilson, that he be a dumpster fire in Pittsburgh. I know you were. It's okay. Now that Bo Nix is playing as well, it's like, you know what? Don't really care that much about how Russell Wilson's playing, which is a healthy attitude to have, by the way. But it worked out. Broncos got rid of Russell Wilson. They're better off, and they didn't get Aaron Rodgers. They're better off. By the way, speaking of the Broncos and the result last night with the Ravens being the Chargers, so the 6th seed is in play. And I mentioned this earlier. In a lot of ways, 6th seed, 7th seed, what's the difference? Right? Honestly. Maybe you have a little bit of a preference who you play down the road, but you're still going on the road during wild card weekend. You're still not in a great spot to get out of the conference. It would just be your preference on who you want to play. And to say nothing of whether Buffalo or Pittsburgh would be a more difficult matchup, which I would say would be Buffalo, which is who they would play today. The universe, after tormenting Broncos fans for so long, has a chance to really make it up to them. Right? They've done the universe has done a little bit with the emergence of Bo Nix. But the universe kind of owes Broncos fans one because Justin Fields played early in the season, and they want Broncos fans. I know you wanted Russ versus the Broncos. Could I interest you in Russ versus the Broncos playoff edition? Yeah, you could say that Pittsburgh would be a better matchup for the Broncos than Buffalo would be. I'd agree with you on that. But the Steelers are still better than the Broncos. But just the anticipation of going up against Russell Wilson. I know I just said that you're not bothered by Russell Wilson's success anymore. You don't think about his demise anymore. What if I told you that the Broncos were playing the Steelers round one of the playoffs? Come on, you want that. And the Chargers left the door open. Although Baltimore winning last night helps them. So we'll see how it all shakes out. But certainly a lot of possibilities and a lot of interesting possibilities for the Denver Broncos moving forward. Up first, Cleveland on Monday, which will coincidentally be the next time that I speak to you in this capacity, as I'm heading out on the road with Air Force women's basketball. So talk to you on Thursday for that, or Saturday for more of that. And then we'll reconvene on Monday and go deep into the Broncos-Browns matchup. Another primetime game. Broncos are going to get a few of these down the stretch. Appreciate your patronage. Don't forget, coming up top of the hour, Frank Serratori Show here on Extra Sports 1300.